The final frontier. No, wait. Think smaller, much smaller. For generations, medications have improved our quality of life. They have helped to curb the effects and even cure an array of medical conditions. Unfortunately for scientists, developing new medicines isn't easy. Of every 5,000 compounds that may show early promise, only one will ever become a medicine. So why the terrible odds? Well, think of it this way. There are billions of stars in the universe to explore, kind of like the billions of molecules that exist in drug development. Highly dedicated scientists must endure an arduous process of trial and error, and then do it all over again for at least 10 years. Failure is just another part of the job. The trick is to not let it go to waste. So, how can we turn today's failures into tomorrow's successes?
I've been in research for 40 years. I oversee the building of the drug pipeline at AbbVie. My father was a chemist, was a scientist, and I was very interested in science. We don't understand what causes disease very well, so I think the detective work is actually finding what's the cause of the disease and then finding solutions for that. Seeing the tumor shrinkage for the first time with a new drug, that's exciting.
But the process takes dedicated work.
First in class is usually what I go after, really novel ways of thinking of disease. This would be the first time that a new scientific concept would actually be tested with a drug around that disease in patients. And it's very important for companies to always be at the forefront of discovery.
Today, over 70% of the medicines in AbbVie's pipeline are considered first in class.
We actually will look at millions of different compounds, which are in our libraries of compounds. That goes from millions to thousands, to eventually a handful of molecules which we think are potential drug.
Out of the billions of planets in our galaxy, we've explored 8, and that's including Earth. Drug developers may have a shorter trip, but with billions of molecules on the playing field, it can be hard to hit the mark. Despite costing an average of $2.6 billion to develop, less than 12% of the candidate medicines that make it to clinical trials will ever reach a patient.
Failure is a process. I know it's going to take 10 years to develop a good drug. If I don't see early on a signal of safety and efficacy, it's really important to stop that project and go back to the lab and optimize it. When it's a good experiment and I really understand why I failed, I tell the team, good job. It's negative, but we learned something, let's go back.
You're never going to learn anything without having some negative results and some failures along the way. My mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. I was like, I got to do something about this. What can I do? What can I learn? How can I apply that? If I have an impossible question to answer, let me utilize every tool that's available to me to really narrow down and get those results instead of just giving up.
With dozens of drugs currently in development, AbbVie is pushing the boundaries of medical discovery. The numbers may be daunting, but we're getting closer to solving the puzzle.
Studying the genome is exactly like space, the next frontier. There are a million, billion, zillion questions that we can answer. You can plan out an experiment and then something doesn't happen the way you expect it to, or you can do a week's worth of work and then the instrument crashes. So even though we may have some drawbacks, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. It doesn't mean you have to have the most brilliant people in the room. What you do need to have are creative people willing to work very hard to answer that question.
Though far from glamorous, the world of drug development is not without its glory. It's just not always easy to see. The quest for new and better medicines is long and plagued by failure. But with a little ingenuity and a willingness to take risks, those failures can save lives.